If anyone had told me that my life would end up depending on the resale value of my blood, I would have laughed. Then again, laughter was cheaper than rent. The clinic light above me flickered like it was also on life support. The whole room smelled faintly of bleach and despair, which, to be fair, was exactly what the sign outside promised. Discreet medical services. No questions asked. The nurse handed me the contract, 3 pages, thin font, full of legal words like voluntary contribution and confidentiality. I scanned it like I always did before pretending to read. The last time I'd actually tried, my brain had tapped out after in perpetuity. She said, "This is high reactivity blood. Are you sure you understand what that means?" "Yeah," I muttered, signing my name. "Means I'm delicious." Her face didn't move. Maybe she'd heard that joke too many times. I grinned weakly and tapped the pen on the counter. "It's fine. Just take it. I've got a landlord who thinks I photosynthesize." She sighed, slipping a rubber strap around my arm. "Once it's drawn, it'll go to certified buyers, alphas with prescription clearance. You'll be anonymous. But if the buyer bonds to the scent, I'll regret it," I finished for her, half laughing. Story of my life. The needle went in. The world tilted a little as the red flowed through the tube. My red, my rent money, my everything. I watched the bag fill, pretending it was just juice, not a piece of me being sold to whoever had enough money to buy calm in a bottle. When it was done, I pressed cotton to my arm. "So that's it? I just walk out and pretend I didn't just sell body parts?" "Technically, you sold a product," she said flatly. "Right," I muttered. "A product that meows at 3 a.m. and expects tuna. Thanks." I tucked the cash envelope into my jacket and left before I could think too much about it. The city outside looked just as gray as when I'd entered, like the universe didn't care that I'd traded a vein for another week of survival. Still, I smiled, because what else could I do? Somewhere someone will be using my blood. Adrian Vale didn't smile. Ever. People said he was the kind of alpha who could silence a boardroom, just by breathing wrong. The heir to a corporation that made money off biochemical stability treatments for alphas with pheromone rage. Funny thing about alphas with rage, they liked control. But Adrian was born without the off switch. He sat in his private office, jaw tight, watching the doctor load a syringe with a vial of faintly glowing liquid, omega blood, treated, filtered, tagged anonymous. "Your last dosage wore off too quickly," the doctor murmured. "This one's special, highly reactive, should calm you longer." Adrian rolled his sleeve up, veins tense against his skin. "Do it." The injection slid in. For a second, there was only silence. Then, heat. It hit him like a rush through his chest, raw and intimate, his lungs filled with scent, sweet, faint, human, not chemical, alive. He froze. His heartbeat thundered, syncing with something he couldn't name. The scent curled through him like smoke and honey, twisting his insides. He saw flashes, laughter, trembling hands, cheap cologne and instant noodles, and something achingly lonely, and a voice. Light. Weak. "Sure, because I totally have that kind of luck." He inhaled sharply, almost choking. The doctor blinked at him. "Are you all right, sir?" Adrian's voice came out low, strained. "Who is he?" "Anonymous donor. The black market suppliers protect their sources, you know that." Adrian's hand clenched so hard the syringe cracked. His pupils dilated, his breath shuddered. The pheromone monitor on the wall beeped red. Unstable. He exhaled slowly, voice hoarse. "Not anymore." When I got home, the streetlight outside my building had finally died. The universe, as always, had perfect comedic timing. "Great," I told the dark stairwell. "Maybe the ghosts will at least pay rent." My apartment was the size of a large closet. If the closet had peeling wallpaper and a cat named Pickle who believed in early morning warfare. He yawned at me from the couch as I opened my dinner. Instant noodles and guilt. "Don't look at me like that," I told him. "At least someone out there thinks my blood's premium grade. You? You bite the mailman." Pickle blinked, unimpressed. I slurped noodles and tried not to think about the warning the nurse had given me. "If the buyer bonds to the scent, you'll regret it." Yeah, right. As if any alpha would sniff a vial and go, You know what I need? That guy who can't afford milk. I finished eating, showered, and crawled into bed with the subtle grace of a sack of laundry. The sheets smelled faintly of detergent and exhaustion. For a while, I almost slept. Then, I felt it. A pulse, low and deep, pressing against my chest like a second heartbeat that wasn't mine. My scent glands, the ones that had been quiet for years, tingled, faintly burning under my skin. I sat up, dizzy. The air felt too thick, like someone else was breathing it with me. Pickle? I croaked. The cat blinked from the chair, tail flicking, unconcerned. I pressed my hand to my chest. My heart was racing. There was this strange pull, invisible, insistent, like something out there had locked onto me. The rational part of my brain whispered, maybe stress. The irrational part whispered, someone's calling you. I laughed weakly to no one. Yeah, sure. My blood's gone on a world tour and now it's homesick. But even as I joked, my pulse wouldn't calm. I could almost feel a whisper brushing my skin, low and foreign, a voice that wasn't there but still felt real. And somewhere, miles away, an alpha exhaled my scent like a prayer. If someone had asked me that week how my life was going, I'd probably have said, still alive, still poor, cat still hates me. Meanwhile, somewhere across the city, an alpha was losing his mind over a pint of my blood, which, honestly, sounded like an overreaction. Adrian Vale hadn't slept in 3 days. His office windows reflected a skyline of neon fog, but he barely saw it. Every breath he took felt wrong, like the air was missing something vital. The scent monitors in the building registered spikes of pheromones so high the system kept flashing feral containment alert. His secretary had stopped making eye contact 2 days ago. Sir, said one of his board members, trembling as Adrian walked into the meeting room, we were reviewing quarterly. Adrian's head turned sharply. The room went silent. He'd caught it again. Faint, maddening, a whisper of that scent. Not strong enough to calm him, just enough to make his hands shake. His gaze locked on a courier standing near the back, holding a folder. You, he said. The woman flinched. Sir? Where did you get that file? She hesitated. From the records office. A clerk handed it to me. He stepped closer, nostrils flaring. The scent was there, clinging to her skin, faint but unmistakable. Him. For a second, Adrian's control broke. The edge of the table cracked under his hand as he slammed it down. Papers flew everywhere. Leave, he ordered. His voice was calm, but the air in the room felt like a thunderstorm about to break. Everyone scrambled out. The courier dropped the file, fleeing. Adrian picked it up, staring at the smudged ink. The scent lingered faintly on the corner of the page. His body reacted instantly, pulse racing, breath quickening, instincts screaming mine. He closed his eyes. The phantom echo of that heartbeat filled his head again, that same sarcastic tone. Sure, because I totally have that kind of luck. He clenched his jaw. Find him, he said quietly into the calm. The donor, the one whose blood I was given. The line crackled. Sir, that's impossible. Black market donors are protected. I don't care. For a long moment there was silence. Then Adrian exhaled through his teeth, eyes half-lidded. My body can't breathe without him. Find him. I was dreaming of noodles. Good ones, not the packet kind. Real broth, eggs, the works. Then someone started trying to break my door down, and my dream chef vanished with my patience. Okay, I'm up, I shouted, stumbling out of bed. Pickle, my cat, dove under the couch like I'd just announced the apocalypse. The knocking didn't stop. It wasn't the polite landlord knock. It was the, if you don't open this door, I'm going through it kind of knock. I opened it a crack, ready to unleash my usual tenant speech. Rent's due next week, I swear. Please don't evict me. I'll start paying in organs if needed. But it wasn't my landlord. It was him. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a suit that probably cost more than my building, with eyes the color of a storm about to happen. For a second, I honestly thought I was still dreaming, because nobody that good-looking should look that haunted. He didn't even blink. His gaze ran over me once, The oversized shirt, the messy hair, the general aura of unpaid electricity bill. Then he said very quietly, "You sold your blood." I blinked. Uh, okay. Weird opening line. You're not from the IRS, are you? He didn't answer, just stepped forward a little, and I realized his hands were trembling. Not from weakness, but restraint. The air around him was thick, heavy, charged. His pheromones hit me like a wall, even though he was barely a few feet away. "Whoa," I muttered, waving a hand in front of my face. "You bring your own atmosphere with you or what? Is this a new cologne? Ode to death threat?" His jaw twitched. "You don't understand." "Oh, I never do," I said. "But since you clearly broke into the wrong apartment, maybe you could leave before the walls melt from whatever scent bomb you're leaking." He stepped closer again, slow, predatory, but there was something desperate in the movement, like even he was afraid of what he might do. "My name is Adrian Vale," he said. "You are the donor. The blood they gave me, it was yours." I opened my mouth, closed it, opened it again. "You tracked me down for a few drops of blood? Dude, you could have just bought a smoothie instead." His lips parted like he wanted to speak, but he didn't. He was breathing shallowly, chest rising and falling too fast. Okay. Maybe he was insane. Or maybe this was karma for every sarcastic comment I'd ever made. I reached for the door. "Look, you're clearly having a day. I have zero interest in becoming whatever weird meditation project you've got going on." He caught the edge of the door with his hand. "Don't." That voice, low, hoarse, dangerous, sent a chill down my spine. "Please," he said, and there was something broken in it. "Just don't move." The moment he breathed in, I felt it, not metaphorically, physically. Like a spark jumped between us and hit every nerve I owned. His pupils blew wide, black swallowing the color. His entire body went rigid, like he'd been electrocuted by my existence. I stumbled back instinctively. My scent glands flared against my will, the biological equivalent of waving a red flag at a bull. The air shimmered with heat. His pheromones filled the tiny hallway like smoke, thick enough to taste. My lungs burned. Hey, breathe," I stammered, pressing my back against the wall. "You're doing that scary alpha thing." He looked up at me, eyes unfocused, like he was half somewhere else. "It's you," he whispered. "Yeah, I gathered that, Sherlock." He took another breath, a long, shuddering inhale, and his shoulders relaxed, just slightly. The tension in his frame started to melt, replaced by something worse, calm. "My body calms when you're near," he murmured. And I swear to God, my first thought wasn't romantic. It was, "Oh great, I've become a human anxiety pill." "Right," I said, hands up. "Good for your body. Can your body also calm the hell down? Because you're kind of vibrating like a microwave." He didn't even hear me. His gaze was fixed on me like I was air and he'd been drowning. His hand trembled, hovering near my arm, but he didn't touch. The silence stretched. The only sound was our breathing. His heavy, mine fast. Something inside me twisted, uncomfortable. Because as much as I wanted to be angry or scared, there was also this tiny, traitorous flicker of sympathy. He looked like a man losing a war with himself. And that war was me. Finally, he staggered back a step, gripping the doorframe like he needed it to stay upright. "I didn't mean to scare you." "You didn't," I lied instantly. "I always invite strangers to vibe check my hallway." His mouth twitched. Not quite a smile, but close. Then his eyes darkened again. "They said you were anonymous." I sighed. "Yeah, I was hoping to stay that way. Look, Mr. Vale, I don't know what kind of pheromone experiment went wrong here, but I'm not your whatever you think I am. I'm just a guy who sold blood to pay rent." He studied me quietly. "You shouldn't have done that." "Yeah, well," I said, forcing a grin that didn't reach my eyes. "Is it wrong to survive?" For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then, almost imperceptibly, his expression softened, guilt or something like it flickering across his face. When he finally stepped back, it felt like the air could breathe again. He glanced once more at me, like memorizing the sight, and said softly, "I'll come back." And then he was gone. Just gone. I stood there for a full minute, staring at the empty doorway. Pickle meowed from under the couch. "Yeah," I muttered, rubbing my chest where my heart was still thudding too hard. "Me too, buddy. Totally normal. Just a random billionaire tracking down his favorite blood donor. Happens all the time." I laughed. The kind of laugh that sounds almost like crying, because deep down, under the sarcasm, I knew one terrifying thing. The ache in my chest when he left wasn't relief. It was loss. When I opened my door again 3 days later, I found a 6-foot-tall disaster lying on my hallway floor. "Wow," I said, staring down at Adrian Vale, the alpha who'd practically radiated apocalypse energy last time. "You look like you lost a fight with a fever dream." He didn't answer. Just gasped like breathing itself hurt. His shirt clung to him with sweat, and his pupils were so blown I couldn't tell where the color ended. I crouched. "Okay, you're either having a mental breakdown or the world's most dramatic allergic reaction." He lifted his head slowly, eyes glazed. "Couldn't stay away." "Yeah, that's called stalking," I said, but my voice wavered because up close he really didn't look fine. He was shaking, whole body trembling, breath stuttering like he was suffocating. When I reached out, his skin was burning. I pulled my hand back immediately. "Okay, wow, lava skin. Nice party trick." His gaze locked onto me like that single motion had dragged him back from the edge. "Ari," he rasped, and hearing him say my name like that, wrecked and reverent, made something twist uncomfortably in my chest. What's happening to you?" I asked, trying to sound annoyed instead of scared. He swallowed hard. "Withdrawal. From your blood. From... Are you kidding me?" He shook his head weakly. "The bond reactive strain. It... attached. My system needs proximity. Without your scent, I can't..." He shuddered, biting back a groan that sounded too human, too raw. I stared. "You're telling me you're going through withdrawal because your body misses me? No offense, but your taste in coping mechanisms sucks." He laughed once, hoarse, broken, then slumped against the wall. I paced in front of him, rubbing my temples. "This is insane. You need a doctor, not me." "I had one," he whispered. "He said if the bonding triggers chemically, only exposure stabilizes it. I've tried everything. It's getting worse." His hands were shaking so badly that the air around him smelled faintly metallic, pheromones flaring uncontrollably, sharp and hot. I took a slow breath, trying not to inhale too much of it. Okay. Say I believe this. What do you want me to do? Just sit here while you use me as your emotional support omega?" "Yes," he said simply. The audacity nearly gave me a stroke. "Oh, fantastic. Should I invoice you hourly or just sell you a subscription plan?" He blinked, dazed, not catching the sarcasm. "I'll pay. Anything." That shut me up for a second, because behind all the power and madness, he looked frighteningly human, trembling, desperate, trying not to fall apart. My chest tightened. I hated that feeling. Pity was a luxury I couldn't afford. "Fine," I muttered finally. "You can stay until you're not dying, but I'm not your remedy, got it? I'm your unpaid therapist with good pheromones." His lips twitched. Not a smile exactly, more like his body remembered how to have one. "Agreed." "Good," I said, hauling him up awkwardly. "Now get in before the neighbors think I've adopted a corpse." If someone had told me that I'd have a billionaire alpha living in my one-bedroom apartment, I'd have laughed. Then again, I laughed a lot lately. It was that or scream. Adrian moved in like a storm, pretending to be polite. His version of settling in meant cleaning everything. Twice. I woke up the first morning to find him ironing his shirt on my kitchen counter. I blinked at him. "Is this, like, a ritual? Do you fight wrinkles for dominance?" He didn't look up. "It helps me focus." Right. Meanwhile, my brain only starts working after instant noodles and an existential crisis. He didn't laugh, but the corner of his mouth betrayed him. Barely. The man was terrifyingly neat. He folded his clothes like he was at war with gravity. He lined his shoes up with military precision. Meanwhile, my cat Pickle decided his lap was a new throne, which Adrian tolerated with quiet panic. Our first 3 hours of cohabitation went like this. I said, "You can take the couch." He replied, "I'll sleep on the floor." "That's not better. You're built like a tree. You'll break it." I spoke. "The floor's safer." He mocked. "From what? My bad taste in decor?" I asked. He didn't answer. The air between us stayed thick. Not just tension, but scent. His pheromones tried to synchronize with mine every time he got too close. It felt like living in a pressure cooker full of invisible heat. Sometimes I caught him watching me. Not in a creepy way, but like he was trying to memorize how I breathed. Once I caught myself watching him back. That was worse. Because beneath all that control and sharp edges, he looked tired. The kind of tired that money couldn't fix. I tried to keep things normal, or as normal as having a chemically addicted alpha for a roommate could be. We ate silently most nights. I'd make ramen, he'd eat it like he was committing a crime. "Not used to carbs?" I teased once. He looked down at the bowl. "Not used to being taken care of." That shut me up for a full 5 seconds, which, for me, is record-breaking. I muttered, "Don't get used to it, I'm just feeding my investment." He smiled faintly, and the room got too quiet again. The air between us hummed with something unspoken, craving, tension, maybe fate being a jerk. Every time our hands brushed, a spark ran up my arm. I started avoiding eye contact. He didn't. Living with him was like holding my breath. It was around midnight when I woke to the sound of breaking glass. My first thought was, great, we're being robbed. My second thought was, wait, the robber smells like pheromones and despair. I stumbled out of bed. "Adrian." No answer. Just heavy, ragged breathing from the living room. He was on the floor, drenched in sweat, one hand gripping the table like he was drowning on dry land. The veins in his neck stood out, his whole body trembling. His scent hit me before I even reached him. Overwhelming, wild, the kind of heat that made your instincts flare whether you wanted them to or not. "Adrian!" I dropped beside him. "Hey, you're overheating again!" He didn't seem to hear. His eyes were blown black, pupils eating the color. "Damn it," I muttered, panic rising. Okay, breathe. Do your expensive breathing exercises or whatever." Nothing. He reached out blindly, fingers brushing my wrist, then gripping hard. "Don't," his voice cracked. "Don't leave. I'm not, hey, careful." He pulled my wrist toward him, pressing his face against my pulse. The instant his nose brushed my skin, everything stopped. The trembling eased. His breath evened out. The air went still, heavy with relief. He exhaled against my wrist like it was the first air he'd had in hours. And I froze. Because underneath the fear, the pity, there was this flicker of something else. Something dangerously close to wanting to let him stay there. "Adrian?" I whispered. He looked up at me then, eyes still glassy but focused finally on me. "I told you," he murmured, voice low, wrecked. "My body calms when you're near." My throat tightened. "You're addicted to me." He gave a tired, broken smile. "No, my body is." He lifted his hand, fingertips brushing over my pulse again, gentle, reverent. My mind already was. For a second, I couldn't breathe. It would have been easier if he'd just stayed the monster I wanted him to be. But this quiet confession said like a curse. It hit me in places I didn't want touched. I swallowed hard, pulling my wrist back. "Don't say stuff like that." "Why?" he asked softly. "Because it sounds like something that'll ruin us both." He leaned back slowly, exhausted, eyes closing. The tension drained from his body completely, like just existing near me had shut off the chaos inside him. I sat there on the floor for a long moment, staring at him, at the faint tremor still in his hands. Part of me wanted to shove him away, to scream that he'd dragged me into something too big, too dangerous. But another part, the stupid, human, lonely part, whispered, "He looks peaceful when he's with you." Pickle jumped up on the couch and curled next to Adrian's leg, purring like betrayal incarnate. Traitor, I muttered at the cat. Then I sighed and rubbed my face. What the hell am I doing? He didn't answer, already asleep, breathing softly. The room was silent except for his heartbeat and mine, somehow finding the same rhythm, and I hated how right it felt. It started with a cup of coffee and ended with teeth. I wish I were exaggerating. Don't you ever sleep? I grumbled, stumbling out of my room in boxers and a half-dead brain. Adrian was already awake. Of course he was. The man probably powered himself on guilt and discipline. He was standing by the window shirtless, phone in hand, sunlight hitting the faint veins on his neck. It was a problem. Not that I'd admit that out loud. Could you not look like a Greek tragedy before I've had caffeine? I muttered, scratching my hair. Some of us are trying to stay emotionally detached here. He turned, eyes heavy but amused. Morning to you too. You mean afternoon, I corrected. I live by vampire hours now, thanks to your nightly existential crises. He didn't respond, just studied me for a bit too long, that unreadable expression back in place, the kind that made my stomach twist. I started making coffee. So, Mr. Bond Addiction, feeling less murdery today? He hummed. A little. I glanced over my shoulder. Good. Try not to go feral before breakfast. That's when I caught it. The faint shimmer in the air, the sudden spike of pheromones. It was subtle at first, then sharp, electric. Adrian's breathing hitched. His hands tightened on the counter. Oh no, I said flatly. Not again. He turned toward me, eyes darkened. It's just stronger today. Define stronger, I said, backing up a step. He blinked, like he was fighting to stay sane. Your scent, it's everywhere. I groaned. Yeah, that's called living together in 400 square feet. But then he stumbled, actually stumbled, catching himself against the counter, his jaw tightened, pupils dilating like he was on fire from the inside. Adrian? He looked at me and I swear there was no air left between us. Ari... Before I could say anything else, he reached out, just to steady himself, and his mouth brushed my wrist. It wasn't planned. It wasn't even really a bite. But his teeth grazed skin, a quick, instinctive snap, and then he froze. The mark wasn't deep, barely broke the surface, but his tongue flicked over the spot in apology, breath shuddering, and I forgot how to think. A scent burst out. Mine, his, tangled, hot, like lightning trapped between us. I jerked my hand back. What the hell, did you just bite me? Adrian's face went pale. I didn't mean to, I sputtered. What, your mouth just slipped? He opened his mouth, then closed it, looking absolutely horrified. And something else. His nostrils flared. He looked like he wanted to both run and kneel. Oh, great. Fantastic. I was apparently someone's kink and crisis at the same time. Stay back, I barked, backing toward the sink. He didn't move. His eyes followed the drop of blood that welled up on my wrist. The Bond reaction hit him so hard that I saw his throat move as he swallowed hard. Once, twice. That was enough to make me panic. I grabbed a sponge and started scrubbing the spot like I could erase biology. Arden, don't Arden me, I hissed, scrubbing harder. You don't bite people. That's like step 1 in the How to Not Be a Rabid Alpha manual. He flinched. It wasn't control, it was instinct. Try using your instincts for taxes next time, I snapped. My wrist was raw and red by the time I stopped. My heart pounded like I'd run a marathon in place. Adrian just stood there, breathing hard, his expression torn between guilt and something deeper, darker. Finally, he said quietly, Your blood smells like calm. I froze. Don't say things like that, I muttered. It's creepy. It's true, he said, almost to himself. Every scent I've ever known feels like noise. Yours feels like silence. And that was worse than the bite. Because silence was the one thing I hadn't had in years. The apartment went awkwardly quiet after that. Adrian stayed in his room most of the day. I tried to convince myself that was good, that I didn't want to see him, that my pulse didn't jump every time I thought about that split second, teeth, warmth, breath, Bond. Around evening, I found him sitting on the couch, staring blankly at the wall. Hey, I said, crossing my arms. You planning to brood until we both die of tension? He blinked slowly. Sorry. Not sure that covers biting incident, but sure, apology accepted with interest. He looked up at me. You don't understand what this feels like. Try me, I said, flopping onto the opposite end of the couch. He hesitated, then said quietly, It's not just craving, it's chemical possession. Every cell in me screams when you're gone. I can't breathe right without your scent. I can't think. It's like drowning in silence and then gasping the moment you walk in. I stared. Wow. Romantic. You're basically describing addiction with better lighting. He gave a small, broken laugh. That's exactly what it is. For a moment, I didn't have a joke. Just this stupid tightness in my throat. So what? I'm your emotional support Omega now? I said finally, forcing a smirk. He actually smiled. Faint, tired. If that's what you want to call it. Perfect, I said, voice shaking despite myself. Do I get a vest? Maybe a little tag that says do not engage, highly scented? He didn't answer, just looked at me with this unbearable softness. It wasn't lust. Not exactly. It was too gentle to be hunger and too haunted to be affection, and I hated that I didn't hate it. Adrian, I said, rubbing my face, you can't keep depending on me. You're supposed to be the scary alpha CEO or whatever. Go punch a wall or meditate on a mountain. I've tried, he murmured. The silence hurts. Something in his voice cracked on the word hurts. I should have laughed it off again. Should have thrown a pillow at him or changed the topic to literally anything else. Instead, I said softly, maybe it hurts because you don't know what peace feels like anymore. He turned his head toward me, slow, stunned. And for a terrifying moment, we just looked at each other. Really looked. My pulse tripped. My fingers twitched. I wanted to move, to run, to do something. So, naturally, I said the dumbest thing possible. Stop staring. You're making it weird. He blinked. You think this isn't already weird? Touché, I muttered. But even as I joked, I couldn't stop noticing how close we were sitting now. How his scent had mellowed, warm and heavy, like rain-soaked cedar. How I kind of wanted to lean closer just to see if breathing him in really would calm me too. It happened in the kitchen again, because apparently that was where all my poor life decisions took place. I was rinsing dishes, humming off-key, trying really hard not to think about the bite incident, when Adrian came up behind me. Hey, I said without turning. I swear if you're about to ask me for blood samples again. I'm not, he said quietly. I froze. His voice was different, low, rough, like he was barely holding himself together. He stepped closer, close enough that the heat of his body hit my back like a living wall. Adrian, I warned, heart racing, personal space. He didn't move away. You smell different tonight. I swallowed hard. That's deodorant, revolutionary stuff. He leaned in slightly. No, it's you. My hands trembled. Don't. He caught my wrist gently, turning me toward him. I ended up backed against the counter, trapped between his arms. His eyes were wild, not angry, just hungry in a way that scared me because it looked too human. Let me just... His breath hitched. Breathe you. Adrian, this is... Please. The word broke something in me. He lowered his head slowly, deliberately, until his face was inches from my neck. His breath touched my skin, hot, trembling, reverent. Almost a kiss. He didn't touch me, just breathed. Once. Twice. And my body betrayed me spectacularly. My knees went weak. My pulse stuttered. The scent loop between us tightened, thrumming like a living thing. I should have pushed him away. Should have said something cutting or sarcastic or sane. Instead, I whispered, You're insane. He smiled faintly against my skin. Probably. We were one breath away from disaster. I could feel it, the tension coiling, the inevitable collapse. Then, all at once, Adrian tore himself back. He staggered away like the air had burned him, hand gripping the counter so hard it creaked. His eyes were wild, terrified. You don't know what I'd do if I start, he said hoarsely. I stood there, chest heaving, wrists shaking, every nerve screaming. Then I laughed, sharp, humorless. You say that like I'm not already terrified. He didn't respond, just turned and walked out, the door slamming softly behind him. The echo stayed longer than he did. I pressed my back against the counter and slid down to the floor, covering my face with my hands. My pulse still beat too fast. My wrist still tingled where he'd held it. Great, I muttered. Now I'm the idiot who almost kissed my chemically bonded stalker. Pickle meowed from the windowsill. Don't look at me like that, I told the cat. You've got no room to judge. You purr for him more than me. But my voice cracked near the end, and I hated how small it sounded. Because the truth was, I wasn't just scared of him. I was scared of what I was starting to feel when he said my name. If guilt had a sound, it would probably be the click of my suitcase zipper. It was early, gray light seeping through the blinds, the kind of quiet that made every movement feel like a crime. Pickle watched from the table, tail flicking in judgment. Don't start, I muttered. You'll get visitation rights. The cat blinked at me like even he didn't buy that. I shoved my last shirt into the bag and looked around the apartment. Our apartment now, I guessed. His shoes by the door, his mug by the sink, his scent clinging to everything like static. It was ridiculous. I was leaving because I couldn't breathe around him, but my lungs already missed him. Classic Arden, I told myself. Run away from feelings and probably a guy who could crush you with one arm. Real healthy pattern. But I had to. The bond, the scent, the pull. It was starting to feel less like survival and more like surrender. And I was good at surviving. Surrender? Not so much. I scribbled a note. Don't look for me. You need distance, so do I. And left it on the counter. Then I grabbed my bag, my cat, and my questionable life choices and slipped out before sunrise. By noon, I was sitting in a cheap cafe across the city, drinking burnt coffee and pretending I didn't keep checking my phone every 5 minutes. He'll be fine, I whispered to myself. He's an alpha with a high stress tolerance and a god complex. What could go wrong? Apparently, everything. Because 3 hours later, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. You're the Omega living with Adrian Vale? He collapsed at work. Pac Medic says it's scent withdrawal. We need you. I didn't even finish reading. My chair scraped back, coffee spilled, and I was out the door. By the time I reached the building, the security guard looked ready to tackle me. I shoved past him anyway. Where is he? The answer came with the heavy stench of alpha pheromones, sharp, desperate, unrestrained. Adrian was on the floor of his office, shirt half torn, skin pale, eyes glazed. A doctor was kneeling beside him, holding a mask over his face, but it wasn't helping. His breathing was ragged, like he was drowning in air. The doctor turned, eyes frantic. He's rejecting the suppressant. He needs his scent match, now! My pulse stopped. His what? You, the doctor hissed. If you don't want a corpse, get over here. For one glorious second, I considered running again. I really did. But then Adrian's eyes cracked open, unfocused, delirious, and I heard him rasp, Ari, and just like that, my body moved before my brain could veto. His skin was burning. I could feel it even before I touched him. I crouched beside him, dropping my bag, hands shaking. Hey, what did you do, you idiot? You're supposed to be terrifying, not pathetic. His hand twitched weakly toward me. You came back. I swallowed hard. Don't sound so happy. I came because someone said you were dying, not because I missed your stupid face. He actually chuckled. Or maybe it was a choke. Then you should stop looking at me like that. I glared, cheeks hot. Like what? Like I'm worth saving. My throat tightened. You're not. You're just really inconvenient to bury. He smiled faintly, the corners of his lips trembling. I hated that smile. It made me want to forgive him, and I wasn't ready to. His hand found my wrist again, always the wrist, the place where he'd bitten me. His grip was weak, but possessive. Let go, I whispered. He didn't. His thumb brushed the faint scar like a confession. I tried to fight it. I did. Yeah, well, You're doing great, I said, voice cracking. You look like a tragic Victorian ghost. His breath hitched, a shaky sound that was almost a laugh. You're still making jokes. I'm coping, I muttered. You should try it sometime. The medic cleared his throat behind us, wisely retreating from the blast radius. Adrian's eyes fluttered. You smell like salvation. Don't, I snapped, but it was too late. The air had already shifted. His scent reached for mine, instinctive, raw. I could feel it tugging at the bond between us like an invisible thread winding tighter and tighter until I could hardly breathe. I wanted to shake him, to yell, to tell him he was cruel for making me feel anything other than fear. Instead, I said, You're an idiot, Adrian. He smiled faintly. Probably. We somehow made it back to the apartment. Don't ask me how. I think I blacked out from emotional exhaustion somewhere between the elevator and the front door. He collapsed on the couch, sweat soaking through his shirt, eyes half-lidded. I stood over him with crossed arms. You nearly died because you missed my scent. Do you hear how insane that sounds? He didn't answer right away, just stared up at me like I was gravity. Finally, he murmured, If insanity keeps me breathing, I'll take it. My chest hurt. You can't just... Adrian, you can't build your life around needing me. Too late, he whispered. God, you're impossible. Yet you came back. That one hit like a punch. I turned away, running a hand through my hair. I came back because someone had to stop you from dying, not because I... Care? I murmured. I whirled on him. Don't do that. Don't make me the villain in your martyrdom fantasy. You don't need me. You need control. He actually laughed, broken and soft. You think this is about control? Ari, I lost that the moment I smelled you. My mouth went dry. Stop saying things like that, I whispered. You're making it hard to hate you. Then don't, he said, eyes fluttering shut. Just stay. The worst part was, I did. I don't know how long I sat there watching him sweat through his fever. The room was heavy with pheromones, his scent wild, mine trying to cover it like a bandage that kept slipping. His breathing turned ragged again, muscles twitching beneath the skin. Adrian, I said softly. Hey, stay with me. He gasped, eyes snapping open, glowing with something too bright to be sane. Before I could move, he was up. Faster than I thought possible for someone half dead. He grabbed me by the shoulders and pinned me against the wall. The sound that came from him wasn't human. It wasn't violent, not exactly. More like desperation made flesh. His entire body trembled, scent flooding the room until I could taste it on my tongue. Tell me to stop, he growled, voice broken, forehead pressed against mine. Please, tell me to stop. My pulse thundered in my ears. Every nerve screamed danger, but under it, something traitorous whispered stay. I swallowed hard. You already did. That broke him. His breath hitched and he pulled back just enough that I could see the raw anguish in his face. He was shaking, not from rage, but restraint. Every line of his body was tight, holding back a storm he didn't trust himself to survive. For a moment I thought he'd break completely, that the bond, the fever, the craving would win. Instead he collapsed against me, not forcing, not claiming, just folding. His head rested against my shoulder, breath hitching, the weight of him heavy but fragile. I froze, unsure whether to hold him or shove him away. In the end, my arms moved on their own. I let him lean. Just for a second. Just until the trembling stopped. His voice was a whisper against my collarbone. I didn't want this. I know, I said quietly. Neither did I. He laughed weakly. You're shaking. Yeah, well, you're heavy. That earned a faint sound, half chuckle, half sigh. We stayed like that, both pretending it was about survival and not the unbearable relief of being near each other again. When his breathing finally steadied, I gently pushed him back toward the couch. Lie down, I said. He did, obedient for once. His eyes were tired, soft. You should leave. I smiled bitterly. Tried that already. Didn't go great. He closed his eyes. Then what now? I hesitated. Then quietly, Now we try not to destroy each other. His lips twitched, almost a smile. You think that's possible? I hesitated. Then quietly, now we try not to destroy each other. Probably not, I said, but we're stubborn. He exhaled, slow and shaky, and for the first time in hours, the air between us eased, still heavy, still dangerous, but not suffocating. I sat beside him, resting my head against the back of the couch. He was quiet for a long time. Then he murmured, Ari? Yeah, thank you for coming back. I sighed. Yeah, don't make it sound noble. You're just really bad at dying. He smiled faintly, and something warm twisted in my chest. I looked away. Go to sleep, Adrian. He did. And I sat there, staring at the mark on my wrist, faint, faded, but burning all the same, wondering when exactly I stopped being afraid of him and started being afraid of losing him. You know what's weird? How quickly temporary arrangement turns into, why are you still in my bed? Every night, it's the same routine now. Adrian falls asleep first, like he's been tranquilized by proximity, while I lie there pretending it's totally normal for an alpha who once terrified me to be snoring 2 inches away. If someone had told me a month ago I'd end up spooning my chemically bonded nightmare, I'd have called them insane. Now, it's Tuesday. Stop hogging the blanket, I grumble, yanking it from him. He murmurs something unintelligible and instinctively tightens his arm around my waist, dragging me closer. I freeze. Okay, cool, sure. Let's pretend this isn't weird. Pickle the cat is on the dresser, staring at us like I've betrayed the entire Omega race. Don't judge me, I whisper to him. I'm just preventing him from scent collapsing again. It's medical. The truth? It is medical. Partly. Adrian's withdrawal hasn't gone away completely. Whenever I stray too far, his body reacts, subtle at first. Shaking hands, shallow breaths, eyes losing focus. So, we compromised. I sleep next to him and he stays alive. Simple. Totally not emotionally complicated. At least that's what I tell myself every time I wake up tangled in him. Some mornings, he's half conscious, face buried against my neck, inhaling like my scent's the only thing tethering him to reality. Once I tried to move. His grip tightened, voice rough in sleep. Stay. And I did. Because I hate him, obviously. That's what I keep saying, as if repetition might make it true. Day by day, the space between us shrinks. Breakfast together. Arguments over who makes worse coffee, him. Long silences that somehow feel less hostile and more charged. He starts smiling more, small ones, hesitant, like his muscles forgot how to. It's annoying. Because every time he looks at me like I'm sunlight, I remember that this started with addiction, not affection. And yet, when his fingers brush mine by accident, my heart does this stupid skip, like it's auditioning for a musical. I should move out. I should run again. I should do something. Instead, I find myself laughing more than I should, letting him stand too close, and wondering when exactly survival started to feel like home. He left for a business meeting that morning, said he'd be gone overnight, staying at his penthouse downtown. Don't wait up, he told me, straightening his tie. Trust me, I won't, I said, sipping coffee. If you die, I call dibs on the cat. He'd chuckled, that rare, low laugh that made my chest ache. I'll try not to make you a widower. Not funny, I muttered, except it kind of was. And that scared me more than anything. By nightfall, the rain started. Thunder cracked like the sky was splitting open. The city lights blurred behind the sheets of water. Pickle yowled every time lightning flashed. Something inside me twisted, sharp, instinctive. It wasn't just worry, it was pull. The bond reacting like a compass needle snapping north. I tried to ignore it, pacing, cleaning, talking to the cat. He's fine, he's an alpha, probably arguing with stockholders or brooding on a balcony or whatever rich people do. Lightning flashed again, and the next second I was already grabbing my jacket. The storm hit harder as I reached the penthouse. My clothes were soaked by the time the elevator opened. The moment I stepped into his apartment, I knew something was wrong. The scent hit first. Not the calm cedar warmth I'd gotten used to. This was sharp, fractured, desperate. The living room was wrecked, glass everywhere. A shattered decanter glittered on the floor like spilled stars. And in the middle of it, Adrian, kneeling. His shirt was half undone, hair plastered to his forehead, hands trembling as he clutched a broken tumbler. Adrian? His head jerked up. The look in his eyes nearly stopped my heart. He looked gone. Put that down, I said carefully. You're bleeding. He didn't. Just stared at me like I was both salvation and damnation. I told myself I could stop, he whispered, that I could be normal again. But I can't. I can't breathe without you. The words hit like thunder. Don't start this, I said, voice shaking. You're just scent crashing again. I'll call the medic. No. He dropped the glass, shards scattering. This isn't about the bond anymore. He staggered to his feet, closing the distance between us. You ruined me, Ari, and I still want you. My breath caught. For a moment, neither of us moved. Rain battered the windows, lightning painting him in flashes of silver and shadow. He looked broken. Not the powerful alpha everyone feared, but a man unraveling. I didn't ruin you, I whispered. You did that yourself. Maybe, he said hoarsely. But you're the only thing that makes me feel alive now. I swallowed hard. That's not love. That's dependency. He laughed, low, bitter. Then let me depend on you. Let me have this, even if it kills me. Something inside me cracked wide open. Why do you say things like that? I snapped. And why do you make it sound like I'm your cure when I'm just as messed up as you? He took another step. Because you are. I should have pushed him away, should have screamed or left or done literally anything that wasn't this. But the words slipped out before I could stop them. Then ruin me back. The look in his eyes changed. Something dark, electric, and devastating. Ari, don't, I said. Don't say my name like that unless you mean it. He hesitated. And then the storm outside cracked again, and the dam broke. It wasn't gentle. 1 second we were standing apart, the next we collided, all heat and rain and months of repressed tension snapping like a live wire. He caught my face in his hands, breath ragged, lips crashing into mine. Every emotion, anger, fear, craving, poured into that kiss. It was messy, desperate, real. I shoved at him, then pulled him closer. Contradictions everywhere. His scent was overwhelming, cedar and storm and want. It invaded every breath I took, seeping into my skin, my veins, my reason. I should have resisted. I didn't. Because for once, resisting felt like lying. He whispered against my lips, "You're impossible." I half laughed, half sobbed. "You're worse." Rain pounded against the windows. The lights flickered, throwing shadows across our faces. He kissed me again. Slower this time, like he was memorizing me, like he couldn't believe I was real. My hands found his shirt, fingers tangling in the fabric. He trembled under my touch. Somewhere between the thunder and our gasps, something shifted. Not lust, not instinct. Something deeper. I pulled back just enough to see his face. His eyes were glassy, lips parted, expression undone. "This is a bad idea," I murmured. He smiled faintly. "Then why are you still here?" I stared at him, rain dripping from my hair, chest heaving. "Because," I said quietly, "you ruined me too." He exhaled shakily, pressing his forehead to mine. "Then we're even." I laughed, breathless. "Even? You nearly scent-bonded me into insanity." "And you dragged me back from it." Yeah, I muttered. "You're welcome." He chuckled softly, that sound that made the world tilt. Outside, the thunder rolled. The air between us crackled with everything unspoken. He leaned in again, and this time, I didn't pull away. The kiss deepened, fierce, unrestrained. Months of denial dissolving into one violent, beautiful surrender. His hand slid up the back of my neck, grounding me as the storm outside raged louder, matching the chaos inside us. When we finally broke apart, both of us were shaking. His voice was low, rough. "You're still here?" I smiled weakly. "Against all common sense, yeah." He brushed his thumb over my jaw, eyes softening. "You're impossible." "Funny," I murmured. "That's what I was going to say about you." He laughed quietly, the sound muffled by the rain. We stood there, breathing the same air, drenched and dizzy, clinging to something that wasn't supposed to exist, something halfway between love and destruction. And just before the lights flickered out, I whispered the truth neither of us was ready to face. "You're impossible, Adrian." His answer was a whisper against my skin. "And yet you're still here." The first thing I notice when I wake up is that I can't move. The second thing I notice is why. Adrian's arm is wrapped around me, like I'm a particularly precious pillow he's sworn an oath to protect. "Hey," I mumble, voice rough. "You can stop strangling me now." He stirs, slow and heavy. His nose brushes the back of my neck. The scent that rolls off him is calm, steady. For the first time since this disaster started, it doesn't claw at my lungs or make my instincts scream. He whispers, voice raw. "The bond stabilized." I blink at the ceiling. "Oh, great. My reward for emotional trauma is permanent attachment. Fantastic." He lets out a quiet laugh against my skin. The kind of sound that makes my stomach do something weird I'll pretend is indigestion. "Don't joke about it," he murmurs. "I thought I'd die last night." His words are too soft, too real. I feel his chest move with each breath, slower even, like the chaos that lived inside him finally burned out. "You're calmer now," I say quietly. He hums, tightening his arm around me just a little, because I finally have what my body was searching for. I roll my eyes even though he can't see it. "You say that like I'm a missing vitamin." "You kind of are," he says, tone dead serious. "Oh, perfect. I'm omega B12. Great for your fur, terrible for my life." He chuckles again, but there's something heavier under it. Relief, exhaustion, devotion that shouldn't exist, but does. When I turn to face him, his hair's a mess, his eyes softer than I've ever seen them. For a moment, he looks younger. Human. "Adrian," I whisper. "Does this mean it's over?" He studies me, gaze tracing my face like he's memorizing it all over again. "No," he says. "It means it's begun." I sigh. "Of course it does. Why can't anything ever end normally with you?" "Normal doesn't fit us," he murmurs. "We broke that the first time you sold your blood." He's right, and I hate that he's right. I hate that part of me, the part that once wanted to run, now feels oddly at peace lying here, tangled in his warmth, in the scent that once terrified me. Pickle jumps on the bed and gives us the most judgmental look known to feline kind. "Don't start," I tell him. "You weren't emotionally manipulated by pheromones and trauma bonding." Adrian raises an eyebrow. "You talk to your cat more than to me." "Yeah," I shoot back. "He's less clingy." He smiles. Small, unguarded, real. And for once, I don't look away. News travels faster in a pack than fleas on a summer day. By the time we step into the pack's headquarters, everyone already knows. Whispers buzz through the air. The alpha lost his mind. He bonded to a low-born omega. He went feral for him. I should be used to it. The stares, the side eyes, the half-covered sneers. But now that I'm walking beside Adrian, it feels different, louder, sharper. I lean close and mutter, "You sure you don't want to wear a sign that says, 'Property of emotional disaster'?" He doesn't even blink. "If you make one, I'll wear it." I snort. "You're insane." He glances at me, eyes gleaming. "You're the one who stayed." Fair point. We reach the boardroom. The senior pack members are waiting, stiff, predatory, radiating judgment. The air is thick with dominance. I swear even the walls are sweating testosterone. One of them, a broad, silver-haired alpha with too much perfume, sneers the moment he sees me. "So this is what made our leader go feral," he says. "An omega from the slums. You must be very talented." My spine stiffens, but before I can open my mouth, Adrian's aura explodes. It's instant. The air drops 10 degrees, his pheromones flooding the room like wildfire. Every alpha in the space instinctively lowers their gaze, necks exposed in submission. He steps forward, voice low, but razor sharp. Watch your mouth. The man stumbles back, trembling. Adrian's gaze cuts across the room, lethal and unyielding. Say what you want about me, but speak about him again, and I'll make sure your scent never rises again. Silence. Pure, stunned silence. Even I forget to breathe. Then, just as abruptly, he exhales, turns to me, and his expression softens, impossibly gentle against the violence he just unleashed. He's mine, he says simply. And somehow, that's worse than the threat. Because when Adrian says mine, it's not possessive, it's vowed, like he's bound it to his heartbeat. The meeting ends fast after that. People scatter like frightened birds, pretending not to stare. As we walk out, I mutter, "You know, I could have handled that myself." He looks down at me, amused. You were about to throw a chair. Exactly, I had a plan. You had rage. Same thing. He shakes his head, lips twitching like he's fighting a smile. You really think you scare anyone here? I grin. You, apparently. He laughs, a soft, disbelieving sound that earns us more whispers. But this time, I don't care. Let them talk. For once, I'm not just surviving. I'm being seen. That night, the storm's gone, replaced by a heavy calm. The kind that feels almost earned. We're on the couch. Me, half asleep. Him scrolling through reports like the world didn't just witness him nearly kill someone for insulting me. My head rests against his chest. His heart beats slow, steady, like it finally found its rhythm. So, I mumble, eyes closed. What now? He hums softly. Now? Yeah. I shift, looking up at him. You've got your body back under control, your business is terrified of you again, and I'm... here. Am I your cure, or your cage? He sets the tablet aside, fingers brushing through my hair. Both, he says finally. And I'd rather die than lose either. The words settle between us, heavy, honest. I should make a joke. I always make a joke. But instead I whisper, You can't say things like that, Adrian. Why not? Because I'll believe them. He leans down, pressing a kiss to the top of my head. Good. I laugh softly. A small, broken sound. You're ridiculous. He smiles against my hair. You love it. Unfortunately, I mutter. I do. For a while, neither of us speak. The quiet isn't uncomfortable anymore. It's grounding, like we finally stopped fighting the pull and just let it be. I trace small circles on his wrist, over the faint scar where his blood once carried mine. Do you ever think, I ask, how stupid this is? All the time. And you still choose it? Every time. I snort. You're so dramatic. You make it sound like a tragedy. He tilts my chin up, eyes warm. It is, but it's ours. I want to laugh. I want to cry. Instead, I just breathe. His scent, calm now, not overpowering, wraps around me like heat. Not prison, not addiction, just him. Pickle hops onto the couch, curling up between us with a disapproving meow. I grin faintly. Even the cats accepted it. Congratulations, you're officially tolerated. Adrian chuckles, his hand tightening around mine. That's all I ever wanted. Liar. He smirks. Fine, maybe a little more. Greedy alpha, I whisper. He leans down, voice brushing my ear. Only with you. I roll my eyes but don't move away. You're impossible. So are you. He kisses me. Soft this time. No storm, no fever, just a quiet promise. When we part, I rest my forehead against his, eyes half-lidded. He whispers, We're ruined, you know. Yeah, I murmur, smiling faintly. But at least we're ruined together. The city hums outside, steady and alive. Somewhere thunder rumbles far away, a reminder of where we started and how far we've come. For the first time, the sound doesn't scare me. Because this This chaos, this bond, this ridiculous alpha breathing against my skin isn't the end of me. It's the proof I survived. Sunlight spilled over the apartment, gentle and unhurried, like even time had decided to rest for once. The air smelled faintly of coffee and the cedar soap Adrian liked. I stirred awake first. For a moment, he didn't move. My face was buried against Adrian's chest, and the man's heartbeat thumped under my cheek, slow, steady, real. I thought, so he does sleep like a human now. Miracles exist. When I shifted, Adrian's arm tightened around me automatically, like muscle memory. His voice came out rough, half awake. Stay, just a little longer. I made a face, though he didn't move away. You're heavy. Do you know that? It's like sleeping under a warm boulder. Adrian hummed. You didn't seem to mind last night. I sighed dramatically. Last night I was tired. Today I've evolved into someone who values oxygen. Adrian chuckled softly, a sound I had once thought impossible. It used to be sharp, dangerous. Now it was low, warm, and real. We lay there in silence, sunlight pooling around us. Adrian's hand absent-mindedly traced slow circles against my back, calming in the same way the bond had always been for him. Except now it was gentle, not desperate. Your heart's steady, Adrian murmured. It wasn't before. I shrugged. Maybe because I'm not being chased, kidnapped, or inhaled like air freshener anymore. Adrian smiled, eyes soft. You're safe. I promised that. For the first time, I believed it, and that belief hurt in the best possible way. Later that morning, I stood by the kitchen counter, stirring instant noodles in a pan. Adrian leaned against the doorway, watching me with the lazy patience of someone who had finally learned how to breathe. I pointed the spoon at him. Don't look at me like that. It's too early for worship. I wasn't, Adrian said, smirking. I was admiring how you've survived mostly on salt and processed flour. Hey, I retorted. Some of us don't have pack chefs. We have bills, not butlers. Adrian crossed the room, took the spoon from me, and began cooking with the precision of someone who'd trained in the military and secretly watched cooking tutorials. I leaned against the counter, watching him now. You really can't stand chaos, huh? I teased. Even noodles make you go alpha mode. Adrian only smiled. Maybe I like fixing things. That's rich, I muttered. You picked the most broken omega on the planet. Adrian looked at me then, quietly, deeply, until I had to look away. I didn't pick you, Adrian said softly. I found you. And that's the first thing I've ever been grateful for that wasn't planned. I felt the back of my throat tighten, so naturally I deflected. Ugh, that's disgustingly sweet. If you start glowing, I'm leaving. Adrian laughed, and the sound filled the small kitchen like sunlight. When we sat down to eat, I noticed that Adrian's hands no longer trembled, no longer clenched as if fighting himself. The wildness that had once ruled him was gone, replaced by something gentler. Devotion, maybe. He really is healed, I thought. And somehow, so am I. That night, rain whispered against the windows. The same city that had once been cruel to them now seemed quieter, softer, like it knew they'd both survived something unspeakable. I sat cross-legged on the bed, reading something on my tablet. Adrian came out of the shower, towel around his neck, hair damp. Your scent's calmer, I said, pretending to read. Adrian paused, smile ghosting across his lips. And yours smells like home. I rolled my eyes. Don't say that. You'll make me... I stopped, swallowing the rest of the sentence. Stay. That was what I wanted to say. Adrian climbed onto the bed beside me, careful, reverent. When I leaned slightly into him, the movement was automatic. Our bodies seemed to understand something our minds hadn't caught up to yet. I felt Adrian's breath against my temple, warm and steady. The bond between us pulsed, not burning, not desperate, just alive. Do you ever regret it? I asked quietly. The bond. Me. Adrian didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached out, brushing his thumb along my cheekbone, tracing the small scar there, one I had gotten years ago, long before we met. I regret what it took to get here, Adrian said finally, But not you. Never you. My laugh was soft and shaky. Wow, you're really going for the tragic romance award, huh? I mean it, Adrian said simply. If this is madness, I'll take it, because it's the only thing that feels real. I didn't trust myself to reply, so I leaned forward instead, resting my forehead against Adrian's shoulder. For a long while, we didn't speak. Adrian's hand slid through my hair, slow and grounding. The rhythm of it lulled me into something like peace. The quiet between us wasn't awkward anymore. It was full of things unsaid, things healed, things that would never quite fade. Later, as we lay under the covers, I spoke without looking up. You know, you've gotten really sappy since we bonded. Adrian smiled against his hair. Maybe you softened me. Or maybe you're just sleep-deprived, I muttered, but there was no real bite in it. I hesitated for a moment, fingers absently tracing the bond mark at my neck. It no longer burned or pulsed. It just was. A quiet part of me. A reminder that something wild had turned into something gentle. Adrian's voice broke the silence. You've been distracted lately. Are you okay? I froze, then sighed. You're gonna freak out. Adrian's hand stilled on my waist. Ari? I turned to face him, blunt, nervous, and yet strangely calm. I'm pregnant. The words hung in the air like falling petals. Adrian didn't move. For a moment, he just looked at me, eyes wide, lips parted, every emotion known to man flashing across his face at once. I snorted softly. You can blink, you know. Oxygen still exists. Adrian finally exhaled, and then laughed brokenly, joyfully. You're serious? Do I look like I joke about that? I deadpanned. Actually, don't answer that. Adrian's hand found my, trembling slightly. I didn't think I could want anything more than you. But now... His voice cracked. Now I do. My throat tightened. You're crying. That's illegal. Alphas don't cry, remember? Apparently, they do, Adrian whispered, pressing his forehead to mine. You've ruined every rule I had. I smiled, small, watery. Yeah, I tend to do that. We stayed like that, tangled together under the soft hum of the rain, hearts steady, breaths shared. For once, there was no fear, no addiction, no chaos. Just us. I thought, maybe this is what surviving is supposed to feel like. Not perfect, not easy, but finally, enough. I whispered, half teasing, half truth. Guess we're officially a mess with a family now. Adrian laughed quietly. Then let's stay messy, Ari. I closed my eyes, fingers brushing over Adrian's mark on his skin. For the first time, I murmured, I think I'm glad my blood wasn't wasted.